Hey, it's the Road Show. We're back. Just the three of us today. Me, Al, and Lindsay. How you guys doing?
Hello. Great. How are you?
I'm settling in.
Yeah.
How about that transition from Car Week back to the real world, huh?
That is rough, right?
You know, for me coming back, it was a couple of days, and then I got a message from a friend that said the local pub has a big field out the front called the Fair Mile, and I think it's this first or second Wednesday of every month they have Porsche night. Do you want to go? And it was an amazing turnout, and obviously posted some photos on Instagram. But I think as you're alluding to earlier, Ryan, before the show, there are moments when you think it was amazing, but after you come back from Car Week, it was a well-needed shot in the arm of, cool cars. But we're all different people now.
Yeah.
The show.
Completely.
Recalibrated us. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I unintentionally just refused to give up Car Week, and I went and drove one of the Gateway Lux GT Broncos right after, and then immediately went up Angeles Crest with Jonny Lieberman in the M3 CS. Super fun, but I was laughing at myself because I'm like, boy, I'm really not giving it up at this point.
No.
I'm just determined to have every day be Car Week day.
I saw some pictures of this M3 CS online, but tell us about it. It was a crazy color, if I'm not mistaken.
I love the color, and I actually saw another one on the drive back from Car Week. Same color, same car.
Is it green? Is that what it was?
It's bright green.
Yeah.
It looks like there's a Porsche color that's very similar. Actually, Dan McGinnis's green.
Is that Python?
It's
Python
something
green?
like that. Yeah. It's similar to that. Very bright. It's got a carbon fiber hood. I believe it's got a carbon fiber trunk lid. And, I can get very, very motion sick very easily. And that was the first time I had been on Angeles Crest and experienced it driven, with skill and at higher speeds. And I felt completely fine in the car. Like, the ride was great. The brakes were amazing. The acceleration was really good. It was so planted. And the seats have built-in handles on the seat part.
Chicken handles.
Yeah. So that helped, I'm sure. But yeah, it was really fun. And it had, one of the settings was a drift. You could drift it and it would rate your drift.
No.
Yeah.
That's asking for
4
trouble.
4 stars. It's like on a scale of 4 stars. How was that drift?
That's amazing.
Like, when you go through towns and they have the speed signs up, some say slow down, some have smiley face, sad face. And there's some that actually tell you what your speed is. And you go, who thought of that? That's the worst idea ever. It's like, cool, right. Open season then, isn't it?
Also limited by the 2 digits, right? Have yet to see a 3-digit speed.
You want to see the 2 dashes, you've got
That's
it.
right. That's
Right.
right. What are we thinking about the design of that thing these days, Lindsay? Because Alan, I think it was you that sent me a clip from another car podcast, guys I've never heard of. Kidding, but they were talking about, were they interviewing another car designer?
Who is,
that's who it was.
Yeah.
And it got his take.
Yeah.
And what did he refer to that as?
Screaming for attention.
Yeah.
I think.
I thought that was perfect.
That's the name of the green, right?
Yeah, right. But they're obviously coming out with very big grills, and it's a bit of a love-hate thing. And I don't mind it if it's on a high-performance car and has a big radiator behind, and it's there for a purpose, and it's doing things correct aerodynamically. Got vents out the bonnet or exits behind, out through the wheel arch, whatever. But when you have like the X7 that has big plastic ones with stickers in there, then you go, please, like it's. That's far too fake for me.
Right.
We've got a neighbor who's got one of those, and we've talked about this before, like the idea of the fake computer at IKEA sitting on the shelf. And that's what it looks like. It looks like the shell of a car.
Yeah.
Like the Happy Meal should go in there or something, right? If you're old enough to remember the Dukes of Hazzard Happy Meal.
Like there's no disputing the engineering, the performance. I know they had a bit of a dodgy couple of years with some engines recently.
Yeah.
But, if you're going to go on track, I would definitely get an M2. That's a great car.
Yeah, I agree. I like the way it looks, too.
Those are fun to drive.
Not what a lot of people would tell you, but they're pretty wonderful.
I'm not in love with the way they're doing the kidney grill right now. Like in the last couple of years, it's just been so overt. But Alan, that's a really interesting point. And I think that's what's so cool about you look at things from like a design perspective and the engineering part of it. And I hadn't thought about, if it has a function, you can kind of make peace with it. But yeah, it's just aesthetically, I don't love it. But somehow on this car, I think there was like the performance was so good.
Yeah.
And the interior's really nice and well done. And, you know, the seats were super comfortable and like really held you in. You know, and he was driving spiritedly, and I was planted in the seat, which was great. And yeah, I think I like the design of that one, but it could also just be because it's got, you know, all the bells and whistles and it's the performance model. But it had like, you know, the side mirrors have air dams on them.
Yeah, everything in BMW is normally pretty intentional. That's why I'm surprised they kind of made this styling step. I'm sure it means something to somebody, but as a car enthusiast, you go, maybe not. Look, I think someone said it looks really good from the inside.
Well, they were always the masters of subtlety, right? You know, that a 3 Series was just a smaller version of a 5 Series, which was just a smaller version of a 7 Series, effectively, right? And then you'd have the oddball like a 6 Series or something back in the day. But, you know, I guess, again, proof's in the pudding. I've not bought a modern BMW. Had a couple of old BMWs. So if I wanted one, I'd get one, you know.
They've gotten so big, too.
Yeah.
You know, especially, I mean, like my truck car is an old 3 Series, and the M3 that I was in the other day is the size of what used to be an M5. So they're just, like, they're so much bigger.
That's it, exactly.
And I don't know
that's happening across the board, isn't it? Like, everything is getting bigger. The same model is getting bigger. I think probably Golf or ID4 is the ID3 is the only thing that hasn't, is staying true to the dimensions. But yeah, everything seems to be getting bigger, even my waistline. So maybe that's why. So.
Well, after Car Week, eating nothing but lobster tails and
washing it down with champagne.
Yeah, it's just how about that come down?
I'm doing a thing called 75 hard. I don't know if you guys have heard about that.
Are you really?
No, but it sounds like something I should probably try.
So,
I know a lot of people that did that after New Year's.
Okay.
Yeah, and I need a bit of a boot camp. I need to give myself a kick. So I'm on day 2, and already I think I'm probably not in the right mindset to make decisions correctly. I'm hungry. I'm bitter. It's going to the gym twice a day. It's drinking tons of water. It's no alcohol. I'm going through cold turkey right now.
I can do one of 3 of those.
There's more, but that's that's just scratching the surface.
Yeah, because it's 75 minutes of activity a day, right?
Yeah, 2 45-minute sessions. One's got to be outside.
Oh.
So rain, hail, or shine. So it's all about changing habits.
Yeah.
That's commitment in England, too, because you're going into the rainy...
Right, yeah. I think it came from a guy from California, so surprise.
Sorry.
Yeah, of course it did. Of course it did. Of course it did.
Anyway.
No, it was rough, guys. It was, family things and bills. And, it took... I think I had my work laptop in front of me for a couple of hours before I was able to crack it. I think I cracked it open like part of the way. The rest of it,
am I really doing
this? It was a clam,
You prioritize all the things, like turn the laptop on, go to email. Right? I'm going to clear out all of the junk ones first, and then
the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, exactly. Easing your way into it.
It was rough, and it just the emergencies just didn't seem like emergencies. After I got
but it changes your perspective.
Yeah,
for sure. So, but you mentioned the Morgan Adams.
That was pretty wonderful.
Tell us about that. We've never, Alan and I haven't been, so I want to hear about it.
Yeah. So Morgan Adams is
I'm seeing executive jets and high roller lifestyles.
A lot of photos, right, for social media. That night, but in a nutshell, so Morgan Adams is named after a girl by the name of Morgan Adams who was diagnosed with brain cancer and passed away. And her parents started this foundation. I think it's about 25 years ago now. And Joan Slaughter is the founder and the chair. And she was on our old show a couple of times. And this event has turned into probably the best Concours event, I would say. This part of the country, I would say east of the West Coast, at least till you get to Chicago, maybe, and maybe even further. It's such a neat event. And they raise millions, I think it is. I think it was like $2.7 million or something, just ridiculous, just an amazing amount of money. And it's at Centennial Airport. It's the signature, I think, jet services or signature flight services is what they call it. And it's unique because Centennial Airport is, I believe, the 17th busiest airport in the country, and this includes international airports and other things. And I believe it's the biggest or the most popular civil airport or non sort of commercial airport in the country. So it's a big deal. And the fact that they closed the runway down,
Oh wow!
for hours for this thing, I think is unique. I can't imagine the red tape that goes into that.
Because even the Lion Air Museum, when we did the Shelby there, that was obviously a hangar on the far side, but it was still like you weren't far away from jets flying off out of SNA.
Yeah.
So,
well, like what? Do you mean the Shelby event that we went to? Yeah, the runway was fully
still active. Yeah.
It's very real, very close.
And so that's what's so special about this is there's this they don't call it an air show, they call it an aerial display. And so that's a component of it. Obviously there's the car component, but post car week, you start to parse the vintage Bugattis, right?
Sure, but is this on par with a preservation test and show Pebble Beach Concours winner?
Although last year they had the Atlantique Coupe, which the one with the rivets down the middle, which was pretty special anywhere. There were some cars pretty close to that this year, if not quite there. Amazing cars, amazing stuff. There was an amazing roof that someone just took delivery of that I didn't. It was an SCR, CTR. I can never get that straight, but that was pretty cool. SCR, yeah, it was awesome, and and just to have all those amazing cars out on this taxiway, and then to have these planes, so like warbirds. I never really cared or thought much about like old, fighting planes or whatever. All right. The way I just said that means I know nothing about these, but let's call them warbirds. And just to see them up close is so impressive, and to walk around and then the cars. And then one of the neatest things beyond the aerial display going on in the background, which culminated again in it's a glider that has had, last year it had one jet airplane strapped to it. This year apparently it was two. So even more. So it's silent until it isn't. And then it flies by and does these acrobatics and shoots fireworks out, and fireworks get shot out of the runway. It's just, for California, it's pretty, for Colorado rather, it's pretty over the top,
It sounds really cool.
It is, and it's a wonderful event.
It's every month at Newport Beach.
That's right. Every Tuesday. It was pretty cool, and honestly, until I've been to Car Week, this was kind of the alpha and the omega. But one of the neat things that they do is they have Gulfstream and Dassault, I think is how it's pronounced. I was calling it Dassault until I was corrected. Dassault, yeah. And so they had a Falcon F8, I think it is, or Falcon 8, and then Gulfstream was there with their 800, which is an experimental plane that's just about to go on sale, and so this was all outfitted, and we'll do Mach 0.85, so we'll almost do the speed of sound. And this is just a plane that you can buy for you and your family. I think it's about 85 million. The Falcon, I think, was closer to 65 million, and you talk about like sort of, now you're sort of like weighing the virtues of vintage Bugattis. We're kind of there doing the same thing, and they wouldn't bring these planes here if people weren't, buying them, right? Yeah. I mean, it costs a lot of money to take a crew and
send it to cars like that. So that's, you pay that, and then it's like the running costs as well. So
that's it.
So I have a foray in this in the past, that there's cost of ownership, and whether you use it or not, there are things you have to replace, and
absolutely
it has a finite life before you have to replace the airframe. So, and then obviously you captain it, you store it, all these things. So there's money going.
Oh, absolutely. Is something like 15,000 an hour? Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, about right. Yeah. And I would have said probably more, closer to 25. But it's when you compare to cars, and car prices are going up, and just recently, I think, a couple of cars have gone for like 2.7 brand new cars, supercars, and people go, oh, that's so much money. And it is a lot of money, but when you compare to, people are buying those jets.
Mm-hmm.
So it still makes supercars look pretty cheap.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds weird to say it, but there's still a massive disparity in that number.
And listen, we never left the ground, but it was fun to play, for a while. And,
and I've been on a couple of these airplanes for a previous job that I had, and we had to jet back and forth to a couple of different locations. They're not comfortable.
I wondered that. Because they're small planes. Like we flew a small, United, airliner to Monterey, and that thing got bounced around a lot, And I've been on smaller planes, Diamond Air, and some of the, the more personal, aircraft. But I've never flown on something in that class, and I wondered the same thing. I mean, the legroom is pretty incredible.
Yeah, well, it depends which seat on the plane you have. There's clearly the person who's paying the bill.
Yes,
and everyone else is clinging on. And I had an offer to go on this other jet a couple of times, and I went, I'll fly Delta. I'm okay.
Really?
So
Okay.
I get the lounge. I get a few other things. So.
Well, it's funny because there is a hierarchy, right, even amongst the jets, and had pretty extensive conversations with reps from both companies, and because they're not that far apart in price, but when you get on the Gulfstream, it seems more like an airliner, and apparently I think they call it it's a hard jet versus a soft jet or something, and the Falcon is it can't fly quite as fast, but it can land at some of the smaller airports. Like I'm not sure you can land a G800 at the airport here in Aspen, for example, which is there's a consideration for some of those listening, right?
Whatever shall we do?
Right. So it was. I could almost stand up straight and walk in the Gulfstream. I couldn't in the Falcon. But there were some interior details and things which if I ever get to
there was an amazing turnout of cars there as well.
It was amazing, yeah, and that's again, this is Colorado, and I think the timing is not it's not coincidental. I think you get a lot of the cars coming back from Car Week as they come here and points east, which is cool. And there were some truly amazing cars. Like I said, I think it's one of the best events of its kind. It's certainly the best event of its kind anywhere. Like I said, between probably California and Chicago, and it gets better every year. It was an incredible event, all for a good cause, and got to see a lot of our friends. It was kind of like, California just kept going because I saw a lot of the same faces.
That's so funny.
Tom Horan, Terry Hefty, Dan McInnes, John Deisty and his family, Lewis, our everyone's favorite 12-year-old car expert was there.
We love Lewis.
We do love Lewis, and so it was fun. And I think one of the highlights was, this has now become tradition. We all go back to, it's the Inverness Hotel. It's a nice hotel not too far away, where John, our buddy, takes it upon himself to order hundreds of dollars in McDonald's and have it delivered. And so you get to try a little bit of everything, and load up on soda. But it was an absolute blast.
That's hilarious. Yeah. That's very on brand.
It was great. So next year, or one of these years, I'd love to get you guys out here.
Yes.
Get some media passes. We'll make a big deal. It's the sunset is always amazing with the mountains in the background. It great make for some great posts. Yeah. So yeah. But that's what I did since I got back. That and work and enjoying our Polestar 2. Which I swear you can goof on me. I love that car more every time I drive it.
So let's come back to Polestar at the end of the show. I need to.
Okay. You're not going to send me an article about how one burned a house down somewhere or something, because that's happened to me a couple of times. It's never been a Polestar, but
No, I'm going to come back to it later. I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to keep you hanging for a bit longer.
He's going to gather his thoughts.
Let's just say I've not thought once about the Tiguan that it replaced since we traded it in. So
that's how you know it was a good choice.
That's how we know it was a good choice. But anyway, so Lindsay, you did a couple of other things too, did you not?
Well, I drove the Gateway Bronco.
So yeah, that's right. So I want to hear about that because those have been getting a lot of press lately. I know Spike is a big fan.
That's something else, is it? Or
say that again?
It's not the vintage Bronco.
So I drove the vintage a couple weeks before Car Week.
Okay.
And that's the one that Spike has right now, that boxwood green. Okay. That's the one that is based on a new Bronco. They get a new Bronco from Ford, and then they change the body panels to the panels that Vintage has designed to make it look more like a classic one. So it's drives like a modern car, and you have the airbags and all the safety stuff with the classic look. Sorry?
For a lot of money.
Yes.
And what were your thoughts on that? Because when I picture that, I kind of go to the old Corvette that's got the 20-inch wheels on it. It just doesn't quite, with the coves on the side, doesn't quite work for me. Do we like this thing?
Yeah. So
you do.
I liked it because I like the idea. Like, that is the one thing that I think about when I take my daughter in the classic one is like, okay, she's sitting on the gas tank and it's an old car. It doesn't have the safety equipment that we have in the modern cars. So I like that aspect of it. It was easy to drive because it's a modern car, and it had, backup camera. The interior is very luxurious. It has, CarPlay and all that stuff, which you don't have in a classic, which is nice. But it's not as engaging as a classic to drive. But I think it's definitely something where if you wanted a fun car that you were going to use.
A few moments later.
So this happens all the time. We literally have a brass no soliciting sign right next to the doorbell. And but that solar panel industry just seems to be driven. So at least once a month, we've got someone come to the door, and my dog loses its shit.
You don't expect people to actually read anything, do you?
Well, you got to be able to read, right? Otherwise, maybe you wouldn't be selling solar panels. Right?
You would hope.
I might be selling solar panels here in a couple of weeks. So
they might sponsor us. I love solar panels.
Solar panels are the best.
Yeah,
Alan's
they
like,
really
that's what
are.
I'm doing too. Weird.
We'll get a new podcast out of it.
Blue Chew, and what's the other one? I don't know. Something that you.
Oh, the AG1 or whatever.
Athletic Greens.
Athletic Greens. Yeah. Hey.
I make sure to take my Athletic Greens while I'm listening to podcasts.
Absolutely. It's how I wash down my Blue Chew. Anyway, let's get back into it. Sorry, you were saying
Collection in Boulder. Who was like that one? So.
You like the Bronco, but you drove a different Bronco this time, and this is the vintage Bronco.
So I drove the vintage one.
Vintage.
I drove the vintage company Bronco, which they call the
It's actually
modern
called Vintage.
classic.
Okay.
The name of the company is Vintage. That's the one that Bike
There we
has
go.
this week.
Okay.
And they had a display they were on the way into Pebble. They had because they do a pink one that's called the Love Shack Fancy Pink, which is of course a favorite of mine. And then they did one in Amethyst Black, which I believe is an Aston Martin color, but it may be Porsche.
Sounds right.
So,
yeah.
but it's like a black purple, really cool.
sounds
So I drove the
Aston-y,
boxwood green one, and yeah, I liked it. I think it's a great option. You know, like Alan said, they're not cheap. So this is not, people are not going to be buying these as a daily. It's somebody that has several cars. But if you wanted a fun car that you could definitely take your family in and is easy to use and it's easy to park and you could take it for sure around town, you could take it on a road trip. Like, I think it's a good option if you're in that realm.
That kind of stuff is really starting to appeal to me. Not that I could swing, a resto mod or, a reimagined car or something, but there's nothing cooler than the guy who's got his family in his Bronco or his old, whatever Jeep, rolling around the neighborhood, going to lunch or whatever. I mean, that's cooler than any Porsche or whatever in a way, And,
Yeah.
Well, maybe something a little patina.
That's what's been so interesting about driving the classic Bronco for me is that it puts smiles on everyone's faces across the board.
Right.
And the number of people where, if I'm going down the street or I'm going around a corner, the people walking or on the sidewalk are tapping each other and pointing at the car. And it's all ages, all manner of people, generations, whatever.
Yeah.
It makes people smile. So that's been really fun.
Yeah. They don't know the price.
No. Yeah.
Ford famously paired with a local Ford dealership here in Denver to make a Bronco back in the day, like in the 60s or whatever. And so they're worth some money. I've seen a couple of them come through, bring a trailer, but you'll see them around town once in a while. And they're very, very vivid orange, white and blue, but very much of the era.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've seen that color scheme a few times, and it's so distinctive.
It really is. I don't care, anything about football or the Broncos, but they're pretty cool vehicles, and I think most of them must still live here for obvious reasons. So anyway,
that's pretty funny.
So I just found out I'm headed to it's called the Shelby American Collection on Saturday, and now this is one of those places that people say you've lived in Denver for 10 years, you've never been to the Shelby American Collection. It's up in Boulder.
Lindsay's happy face. It's like it's suddenly lit up.
This was by design.
Yeah. I'm
going with my pal Tom from the Grand, and I think it's just it's their annual dinner, whatever.
It's their gala.
Gala. So yeah, I might have to slip into that sport coat that I wore, I think, every day I was in California. But should
Luckily,
be fun.
the outfit is already planned. Look at that.
That's right. Which also the same outfit I think I wore at Morgan Adams. So, although it might look like this was all on the same day, I promise you this is over 2 or 3 days. But what am I? Have you been? But you know what?
So I have not been. I know.
Okay.
My dad knows one of the people that manages it, Steve Polk.
Yeah.
So you may meet him. But it's.
In fact, I met him at Morgan Adams. Yeah,
perfect.
Which is how this all sort of came to be and got the invitation.
Well, look at that.
Yeah, small world.
That's car world magic at its
Absolutely.
best. You put yourself in the right place, and then you end up in the next right place.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's keep it going.
So it is the best place to view Shelby racing history because they have a lot of the original cars, and they have what was Carroll's Cobra CSX 2000, which was the very first Cobra. And they also have a car that's designated, it's AE01, which is the very first AC Ace, which is the body that they used for the Cobras.
Wow. Okay. And now Tom has had both Cobras, real Cobras, and the AC Aces, at least a couple of them, I think, over the years, among other things.
Oh,
so
wow.
he should be able to tell me a thing or two. And I think that what was the first car you mentioned? The CSX
2000.
Yeah. Okay. I think Bruce Meyer has the car that was immediately after that.
He
Is that
has
right?
the
His black
first
car?
production Cobra, the
First
black
production
one.
car. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the one that
Crazy
Carol
to
has,
think about.
Yeah.
yeah. Or so the one that Shelby American has was Carol's, and it was the first one they ever built, and then
Amazing.
Bruce's was the first production car, and
Amazing.
it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
His is just gorgeous.
It looks like an incredible collection. So.
Yeah, and the two that the CSX 2000 and then AE01 are both from the Walton collection, and Rob Walton was racing in the class that my dad and I commentated on at Laguna
See,
Seca.
it is a small world. It is a small.
Right?
Now, why in the hell is this museum in Boulder, Colorado? That's what I want to know. I'm sure I'll find out. But
Yes,
do you know?
that's your assignment.
Is that
I
my-
don't actually,
yeah?
but
Okay.
So there's this one, and then there's the Cobra experience in Martinez, California, which is
Okay.
Northern California. So they're just, I think they end up where the enthusiasts live.
Yeah, or maybe where the money is, huh? But
I don't. That is your assignment. You get to find out this weekend.
It'd be like the Bloodhound
Why
Gang.
are they based? Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk in with a magnifying glass. Tell me everything.
Do you remember that? You remember the Bloodhound Gang? I would get through
Vaguely.
321 Contact just for the Bloodhound Gang.
Oh,
This was a
321
kid show that we
Contact was
had
the
in the
best.
States, Alan. It was ostensibly a science show on PBS for 12-year-olds. I don't know. And, they do simple science, maybe younger, right? And then at the end, except for when they didn't, and it would always piss me off because you waited all week for this show, they would do a segment called the Bloodhound Gang, which was this group of kid detectives. And sometimes it'd be a 2 or 3 part. But then it was like a science component, right? Like,
Yeah.
But
no, 321 Contact was the
that was
best.
the best.
That
song
was
the jam, too.
pre-streaming, so you're right. We did have to wait all week
That's
for
right.
it.
That's right. And then you get a
Yeah, you
rerun or.
You can't do box sets and just smash it all out in one weekend or one night.
I can't imagine that exists, but I wonder if it would hold up even a little bit. What was your equivalent when you were growing up?
I don't know whether, obviously I grew up in Australia, so we didn't have that many TV programs or channels, but there's a thing called Monkey. Did you guys have that in the US?
No.
Go on.
Honestly, I watched an episode just recently and it was so cheesy. So Monkey and the Flying Carpet, and he had
That's
this.
not even trying.
I know, but he had this
disparate things.
He had this sort of kung fu stick that he made really small, and he kept it in his ear. So,
I mean, that's where you keep. Isn't that where you keep?
monkey magic, monkey.
He'd pull a kung fu stick from his ear and then do.
And then
He would
sing.
fight baddies. So that's how
Amazing.
amazing, yeah.
Amazing.
Sounds like
he drove
quite an
a
experience.
Ute. Yeah.
Whilst driving a ute and shearing sheep, yeah.
One of my early experiences, or one of my early sort of impressions about Australia as a young person, was the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Yes.
Does that mean anything to you? Because we thought that was like the biggest movie ever. That a glass bottle falls from an airplane, lands on an Aboriginal fellow's head, and thus, commences a series of crazy
I
events.
remember the movie. I never watched it because I thought that is a crock of. So,
You're like, I live here. I'm
Anyway.
not watching this.
But that's for years. That was what everything I would read about Australia would go through that filter of The Gods Must Be Crazy.
and then you met me. How disappointed are you?
This is where you say, no, I was a child actor and I was in that movie. And if you go back to,
That's right.
6
Look
minutes.
at the
and-
background.
yeah, that's it. Well, what do you guys got going on this weekend, car-wise?
So I have, and this, what I thought was super impressive, and it is going to be a great thing, but again, Car Week has distorted us here. So through a friend of my son, who does a little bit of wheeling and dealing, I'm just going to get the guy's name so I make sure I get it right. David Spickett, he runs a company called The Car Crowd, which is, you can own a slice of a car and you can invest in. So
Oh, yeah.
that's good fun. So he is exhibiting some cars at Salon Privé at Hampton Court Palace, just down the road. So yeah, I'm going to go check that out and soak up some hospitality
Nice.
again. And yeah, just take myself back to, the good times of Car Week. But it's a great show. There's, again, it's not massive, but it is pretty big, and a lot of companies are there. So trying to reinforce their heritage. So it'll be a great show. I can't wait to get there.
Absolutely.
Well, and is that classic cars as well, or is it modern?
It's predominantly classic, but there are some moderns finding their way in. So
interesting.
Just recently, they had a second show in London as well, which I went to, which was so cold. They chose the coldest day of the year.
Really?
But it was a great show. Definitely the weather affected the turnout, but it's supposed to be 26 degrees on the weekend. Oof. So it's going to be nice and warm.
Yeah. What about you, Lindsay?
I'm going to a car social event Friday night at the it's what used to be the Garage and Social location in Seattle. It's now One Drivers Club, and Crash Jewelry will be there. They're the ones that make jewelry from the parts of cars that have been in accidents, and
love that.
Repurpose it. And Christy makes some really amazing pieces, so she's going to be there, and then some other car-related artisans, I think. And it's always fun to stop in there, and I try to see what's changed in the collection. So I'm looking forward to that.
She followed me on Instagram just recently, actually, so check it out.
Oh, nice.
I want to follow.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of jewelry and such, and
we're all in, aren't we?
Sheffield watch wrist check here.
So
what do you have on? This is a new one. This is the new one, Lindsay.
It is. It's the 38 millimeter Diver 1A with the silver dial that Jay just sent me. And
are you going diving this weekend? Or
I mean, obviously.
I have the 24-hour watch. I've got to be honest, I wear it every day. I've got a few other watches.
Notice that.
It's really nice. And I thought when I got it and I had to set the time, I thought, this is going to be interesting. I didn't actually think about the different, face. And it actually makes more sense to me than a 12-hour watch. It's at a glance I can go, I know where we are now. So
that's awesome.
I love it. Looks great.
Yeah, it looks really cool. We got to see it at Car Week, and that was it's really cool looking, and it's interesting that you're liking it better than the traditional.
Yeah.
It's something actually I choose it every day to wear. So that's good.
In this, and I can never remember what the model is, but this is the Nicole Ryan watch, and I wear this almost every day. It's just the one I grab. It's just, I don't, think about it on my wrist. I love it. I get lots of compliments, and it's just, again, we've talked about how Sheffield watches are sort of car guy or gal code. When you see someone with one, you immediately go up, and anytime I go to a car thing now, I'll have a couple people come up to me, and we'll talk Sheffield watches. So it's sort of become it's a movement. No pun intended. So.
Well, it's actually getting even bigger now, isn't it? Because the Good Vibe Breakfast Club, obviously the chap who has the yellow Porsche and 111, hasn't he bought the Newcomb's Ranch now as well?
Yes, Jay Ryan.
Jay Ryan. And so it's going to close down. They're going to refurb it. And that's amazing. What a memory for him and the whole journey that has been the Good Vibe Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
So it's closed right now, and he is actively working. The last time I was up there, they were unloading, I think, the bar stools and chairs, and so it's amazing. It's so coming along.
It's so cool. Yeah. You in LA are lucky for many things, and that is just one of them. A lot of us don't have something like that. It's a pretty awesome thing, pretty awesome community. Is. And now
it's
you've got
a great
that,
thing to keep her memory alive as well.
Absolutely.
It's
true. Absolutely.
Yeah, you definitely feel her spirit, as part of that. And it's such a peaceful spot. Every time I go up there, I think, it's hard to believe that LA is just down the hill.
Yeah.
Because you are up in the mountains.
Yeah. It's really special. It's really special. Yeah. And I've had a couple of local friends go out last couple of Fridays, and I've reached out to you, Lindsay, if you've never been before, it can be a little intimidating, right? It's almost, but it very much isn't a locals only type situation, right? And,
no.
It's very welcoming and warm, and but people always want to, at least have someone that they can go up and not standing there by themselves. Although I tell people, you go up there and someone will come up to you. It's just that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, the first time I went up, it was the morning after Thanksgiving a few years ago, and it was massive. And I know what you mean, Ryan. It's a very friendly crowd, but it's still just when it's that big, it can be intimidating.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I met Jay and Nicole that first day.
Yeah.
So it's very friendly, and it's a great activity to do.
Yeah, pretty special thing. We just need a couple of Roadshow stickers on the window there.
Well, there's one up there now. I put
there
one on
is? Okay, very
well
cool.
done.
Very cool.
I
That's
put
right.
one on
Maybe
the
I need it.
flagpole when I went up in the M3.
Damn straight.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was like, wait
Nice.
a minute, I'm here and I have stickers.
That's right.
Hang on.
That's right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm headed off to the Shelby American Collection event, which should be fun. And one of my other goals this weekend is just to get out for a drive. This poor GT4 behind me, I don't think it's moved in 7 or 8 weeks. And that's sad.
I will say, coming back, so I was back for a few days, and we had a family break down in Devon. So it was sort of 3.5 hour drive. And I got my wife said, so we'll all go in one car. It's like, I'm taking the Targa. She's like, no, there's no point. I said, I'm taking the Targa. And everywhere we went, it's like, okay, so we'll just take one car. No, I'm taking the Targa. Every time we went out for dinner, but that's 2 parking spaces we need. Don't care, taking the Targa. So
I'll see you guys there.
You only use one spot for your Porsche? What's wrong with you, man?
Only one extra wide disabled spot. It's fine.
That's right. One is defensive.
Joking, by the way.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, great conversation as always. Dan, we missed you, but you'll be back for the next one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Dan likes to take these little road trips, and I'm always so jealous. He's based in Seattle, and he's also a pop culture buff. And so he'll take I don't know what he's up to this weekend, but he's done like a trip where he's gone around and he's checked out all the locations from like Stand By Me or The Goonies or, all these movies that were filmed up there. So
he posts photos and you go, wow, that looks amazing.
Right? Right?
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
And I can only imagine that he might need just a palate cleanser from cars right now too.
So he's taking a road trip.
That's how he rolls, right?
Not a palate cleanser from driving, though. Yeah.
No.
Everyone else's motors, and we want to just drive our own.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think he's in his GR Corolla. So
fun.
Good.
Yeah, it'll be fun to hear about that trip when he gets back.
Absolutely. All right. Well, until we meet again, I'm Ryan.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Alan.
And we're the Road Show. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.